The Boston Bruins have to figure out what to do with Mason Lohrei because while he sits in the press box, other teams are reportedly starting to call.
You're Locked On Bruins, your daily podcast on the Boston Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Bruins fans, and welcome back to the Locked On Boston Bruins podcast. I'm your host, Ian McLaren, and this is a daily show where we discuss all things Spoke B. Today is Thursday, November 6th. Thank you so much for making Locked On Boston Bruins your first listen every day. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And on this episode, we are going to discuss the Mason Lohrei conundrum. On the one hand, the Boston Bruins have won 4 games in a row, but they've all come with one of their more talented young defensemen scratched and in the press box. And reportedly, the Bruins are starting to get some calls about his availability. So should they look to move him? Should they just go back to playing him? We'll dig into the numbers and sort it all out. We'll also update the Bruins Barometer, a weekly update on whether we are buying, selling, or holding on this team. And we'll also preview tonight's very big game against the division rival Ottawa Senators. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app by visiting FanDuel.com and win $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Before we get into all that, a quick reminder, you can find the podcast on socials at Locked NHL Bruins. And you can find me, my hockey thoughts, and dad jokes at Ian C. McLaren. I am a lifelong Boston Bruins fan, and I've been covering this team and the NHL for various outlets for nearly 20 years now. So I was reading Elliotte Friedman's 32 Thoughts blog this morning, and the number 4 point or thought was on Mason Lohrei. And Friedman writes, I don't know that there's anything going on trade-wise with Mason Lohrei, but I do know that when a talented young player like him sits 4 games in a row, others call and ask, what's up? I would love to hear a GM call Don Sweeney and say, what's up? Let's talk about Mason Lohrei. The thing with Lohrei is he is one of the Boston Bruins' best young, talented defenseman. And I think it's just kind of happenstance that they have gone on a 4-game win streak with him scratched in favor of Jonathan Aspirot. Jonathan Aspirot is an undrafted defenseman who is steady, physical. You know exactly what you're going to get from him when he's on the ice, whereas Mason Lohrei is inarguably more of a wild card. He has some growth to do defensively, but he is dynamic with the puck and has a real knack for moving the puck, creating opportunities, and paired with the right partner and deployed in the right situations, he could and should be a real asset for the Boston Bruins and for any other team around the NHL. Now, Friedman didn't come out and flat out say other teams are calling or he's on the block. But again, when you have a guy like this who is on a pretty nice contract, $3.2 million over the next 2 seasons, that being this one and next, and he'll still be an RFA after that point. If the guy like that is available or kind of out of favor on his current team, at least, you bet you're going to be calling to see, hey, what might it take to get this guy on our team? Now, last year, he had a career high 5 goals, 28 assists, 33 points in 77 games. Everybody, of course, points to his league low plus minus, which has actually not been a problem for him as much this season. When you look at his overall numbers, the games that he's been in, you would think there would be some improvement. He's got 1 goal, 5 assists for 6 points in 11 games. And if he was only limited to 60 games, which is what he's projected to be now that he's been scratched, 5 goals, 27 assists for 33 points, which would be level with what he achieved last season. He did have that minus 43 last season. Right now, he's at an even 0. So there is some improvement there. He does have a power play goal. To his credit, he's playing fewer minutes because he was pressed into extra action last year due to the injuries to Hampus Lindholm and then later on Charlie McAvoy. But when people criticize Lohrei, especially for his turnovers, his missed defensive coverage, gap control, but if he's put in the right situation, he could be a very effective player for this team. He's played double the minutes of Hampus Lindholm this year, and he's got a better shot attempt differential when he's on the ice than Lindholm, for example. Much better than Jonathan Aspirot as well, who's at 37.5%. 45 shot attempts for the Bruins, 75 against when Aspirot is on the ice at 5-on-5. Shots, Aspirot is second worst, and goals, it's about 50-50. All that to say, it's not as though Aspirot is out there creating or doing the kind of things that Mason Lohrei is capable of. Now, to be fair, Aspirot has 11% offensive zone starts, whereas Lohrei is at 56.14, which is the highest on the team. But that's how he should be deployed. You put him out there in those offensive zone starts. You put him out there on the power play. That's how he can be deployed. This is a guy who brings a lot to the table in terms of offense. Yes, you are admittedly giving up something on the defensive side of things with Lohrei on the ice. He's not particularly physical. He's only got 5 hits to his credit so far this season, which is lowest among regular defensemen, although Hampus Lindholm only has 1 hit in 7 games, whereas Lohrei has 5 in 11 games. So it's not as though Lindholm is out there being the most physical guy in the world. You have Lohrei, who has also not taken a penalty this season, which is pretty good when you're got your defensive guys out there, you're scrambling or you're behind the play. Oftentimes you'll have a guy grab him or use the stick too aggressively and take a penalty if you're caught behind the offensive player. All this to say that Mason Lohrei, yes, he's not a perfect player by any stretch of the imagination, but I don't believe that he is not part of the best possible lineup the Bruins can deploy right now. And to single him out as the reason why the Bruins are on this 4-game winning streak, or to suggest that he should be removed from the lineup permanently, is just incredibly outrageous, right? Like, there's room for him on this team. You pair him with McAvoy, that wasn't working so well, but you put him with Andrew Peeke or Henry Jokiharju, or heck, take Jokiharju out and put Lohrei in. Jokiharju's been playing on the second power play unit. I'd rather have Lohrei out there on the power play than a guy like Jokiharju. The Bruins are going to lose at some point. Could be even tonight. And at that point, you'll see Lohrei put back in the lineup. They're using this, well, things are going well, so we'll just keep him out of the lineup until something happens. Like if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But if you're waiting for them to lose before putting him in, why not just put him back in? Because you're going to lose eventually. You need this guy in the lineup to continue to learn and develop. And it's up to the coaching staff to help him to that end. It's not going to happen with him watching in the press box. So you either play him, or if you're comfortable with Aspirot as your sixth defenseman, or Jordan Harris when he comes back from injury as your sixth defenseman, then look to move him, because you could probably get a pretty nice scoring winger, which they desperately need, or a high-end prospect for a guy like Mason Lohrei, who would be coveted around the league for his skill set. If he doesn't fit into Bruins style hockey, then there's no point allowing him to sit in the press box for eternity. Either play him or move him. And that's something the Bruins are going to have to decide. I expect Aspirot to be in the lineup tonight against Ottawa. We'll preview that game later on. We'll also touch on the Bruins barometer, take a look at their recent performance and whether we are glass half full or glass half empty, or just kind of content with where they are at the moment. That's all coming up here as the podcast continues. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of the game or want to ride that hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. You can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. And it's not just the NBA. You can get on the action with the NHL. Just look up tonight's Bruins Senators game. Put $5 down on the over-under. If it hits, you'll get $300 in bonus bets if you win. Head to FanDuel.com to sign up. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. I've seen some flexing on social media at the moment about Boston being in the top 3 in the Atlantic Division, which is unreal. Nobody expected that, especially when they were losing so many games back in October. But there's a bit of a caveat there. Actually, they're 4th right now because Toronto won last night. When it comes to point percentage, this team is ahead of only the Florida Panthers, which still 2-time Stanley Cup champions. That's quite remarkable. Florida's 3-6-1 over their past 10. Of course, they're missing Alexander Barkov, Matthew Tkachuk. Brad Marchand was away for the team for a time to support some family friends. The Bruins, though, 4-game win streak is the longest in the Atlantic Division at the moment, with the Maple Leafs having won 3 in a row. It's all very encouraging, but there are some reasons to be cautious with respect to the Boston Bruins. Again, they've played a league high 15 games, which more games you play, the more opportunity you have to grab some points. If you only have 16 points in 15 games, though, that's 30 potential points on the table. You've gotten only 16. That's barely over half, which puts the Bruins well down the standings when it comes to point percentage. They also have a negative goal differential, and they are regularly allowing more shots on goal than they are generating, which is all a bit of a concern. When it comes to shot attempts at 5-on-5, in about 700 minutes 5-on-5 play this season, the Bruins have a 47.69% differential, meaning less shot attempts for, more against. When it comes to shot differential 5-on-5, the Bruins rank 23rd in the NHL with a mark of 48.49%. So a bit better, but not great. Goal differential at 5-on-5, the Boston Bruins rank 25th. They've scored 30 5-on-5 goals, and they've allowed 34. When it comes to high danger chances, and that's scoring opportunities kind of within that home plate area around the net, around the crease, the Bruins rank 31st in the NHL. They've generated only 110 high danger chances for, and have allowed 149. And that's where a player like Mason Lohrei can come in handy, because he can help generate offensive opportunities for this team. When you look at PDO, the Bruins right now are 993. So there is some room for improvement or positive regression when it comes to shooting percentage and save percentage. PDO, again, is looking at shooting percentage, save percentage. That usually levels out at around an even 100. And if you look at natural stat trick, 15, 16, right in the middle, the Islanders and Rangers are right at an even 100. The Bruins are down at 993, which is 21st. So when it comes to shooting percentage, they're at 9.8, which is right around that 10% success rate, which is about average. If you look at save percentage, though, they are 27th at 89.54. So if they get some more saves, again, the problem with this team so far this season has not been goal scoring. It's been defense and allowing too many shots per game, allowing too many goals per game. When it comes to goal scoring, the Bruins are averaging 3.2, which is 14th in the NHL. Not bad. But if you look at goals allowed per game, the Bruins are allowing 3.4, which is 6th worst in the NHL. They're also allowing over 30 shots per game, which is tied for 7th worst with the Winnipeg Jets. So they need to tighten defensively still. Now, again, going back to the Mason Lohrei conversation, you could argue that putting him back in the lineup sacrifices some defense, but we all know the old adage. Great defense begins with a strong offense. If you are able to have the puck more than the opposition, you're having it in the offensive zone, moving the puck up the ice, keeping it away from Jeremy Swayman or Joonas Korpisalo, then that's a benefit. You are keeping it away from where the danger zones are, right? So if you put a guy like Mason Lohrei in there, shelter him still, yeah, with offensive zone starts, power play time. If you're able to keep the puck in the offensive zone, generating shot attempts, generating some scoring chances, then that will improve the team defense overall, because the puck is not in your own zone where all of these skewed metrics are in the opposition's favor. So at the moment, yeah, the Bruins, it's encouraging that they've won 4 games in a row. The way they've done it, a couple overtime sessions, Husnudinov with the overtime winner, the shootout winner. It's been definitely encouraging and steps forward, and it takes time for a team to gel with new faces in the lineup, new voices behind the bench. But at the same time, the way they're playing isn't really indicative of sustained success. We need to see them generate more offensively in terms of sustained pressure, cycling the puck, aggressive forechecking, getting some more shot attempts on net, more than they are giving up. And we also need to still see some improvements when it comes to goaltending. Because like I mentioned, 89.54 at 5-on-5 in all strengths. The Bruins save percentage currently sits at, let's see where they are. Scrolling down, 88.74, which puts them 21st. With a guy like Jeremy Swayman in net, Joonas Korpisalo as his backup, you would expect that number to be a bit higher. So they need better goaltending. They need stronger team defense, which was supposed to be the hallmark of this team. And they're going to be tested big time by a team like the Ottawa Senators tonight. And it's a game we'll preview here as the podcast continues. Let's be real here. Making excuses doesn't solve anything. We've all heard them before. It's just stress. I'm tired. It happens to everyone. But when it comes to performance, sometimes your body just needs a little extra support. And that's where Rougiette comes in. Rougiette.com offers fast-acting, doctor-prescribed treatments for ED, designed to help you stop making excuses and start making moves. Rougiette makes it easy to get started. You just connect with a board-certified doctor 100% online, so no awkward waiting rooms or in-person appointments. The process is fast, simple, and private, all handled by real doctors and shipped discreetly straight to your door. Visit rugiet.com/lockedonnhl to get 15% off your first order. That's rugiet.com/lockedonnhl. Use code LOCKEDONNHL so they know we sent you. Rougiette, stop making excuses and start making moves. Tonight, the Boston Bruins begin a stretch of 5 games in a row against Atlantic Division opponents. It will be the Ottawa Senators visiting TD Garden tonight, and it is the second of 4 meetings between these two teams. The last one was a 7-2 win for the Senators as Ottawa just absolutely crushed the Bruins on that night. Drake Batherson with a huge game. He is leading this team in scoring. That one was a bit of a battle of the backups with Jeremy Swayman was in that one where he allowed 7 goals on 23 shots. Without question, the worst performance of his season to date. And we were denied in that one a Swayman Ullmark matchup with Levi Merillinen in net. I pray that it's Ullmark and Swayman tonight. We would love to see that matchup. And Ullmark hasn't been very good this season. 5-4-2 record, but an .861 save percentage. Jeremy Swayman looking to get back over 900. He's at 5-4 with an .897 mark. That loss to Ottawa was the last loss the Bruins suffered. They're in the midst of 5 wins in their past 6 games, and that was following that lengthy losing streak that came following their 3-game win streak. So a real up and down season for the Boston Bruins so far. I mentioned Batherson. He's got 11 points over the past 5 games for the Senators, 5 goals, 6 assists. He is number 1 on this team in scoring with 15 points in 10 games. Jake Sanderson on the blue line, very strong. Tim Stützle, Shane Pinto, Dylan Cousins, all a threat to score as well. And this team, the Ottawa Senators, pretty good offensively. They rank 6th in the NHL with 3.54 goals per game. Defensively, though, problem. 31st in the NHL, allowing 3.92 goals per game. So the Bruins, this would be a game that it would be good to get Lohrei back into, to be honest, because the Senators are very vulnerable defensively. They're very leaky, and a guy like Lohrei would be able to come in and generate some offensive opportunities for this team against a very vulnerable Ottawa Senators defense. The Senators have a pretty good power play. They rank 7th. The Bruins are in 12th. Bruins are also 12th on the penalty kill. So these numbers are much improved over last year. They were near the bottom of the NHL in both power play and penalty kill. A huge reason why they are over 500 right now. They have a winning record. Senators 32nd on the penalty kill. That's obviously contributing to their goals allowed stat. So the Bruins need to stay disciplined. They need to take advantage of power play opportunities. Again, will be great to get Lohrei in there on the second power play unit. And they also had to be aggressive on the forecheck, take advantage of turnovers in the offensive zone. I recall that Morgan Geekie goal against the Colorado Avalanche where he was just giving her until the final buzzer, was able to gather the puck, put it in with a few seconds left. Like, that's the style of play that they need to have tonight. Face-offs, going to be important. Possession, always important. Senators are the number one face-off team in the NHL. 59.6% success rate. The Bruins are 4th at 54.3%. Senators have won 4 of their past 6 games. They are coming off an overtime loss to the Canadiens, a shootout win against the Flames, and a loss to the Blackhawks. The Bruins, of course, after having lost to the Ottawa, beating the Islanders, the Sabres, the Hurricanes, and the Islanders once again. 18 points in 15 games for David Pastrnak. 13 points in 15 games for Pavel Zacha. Morgan Geekie with 12 points in 15 games. Charlie McAvoy, 11 points in 15 games. We were wondering if this team would be able to score, where the secondary scoring would come from, and they've been getting it. The second line of Zacha, Arvidsson, Middlestat, they've been on fire as of late, and hopefully they can keep it going. We saw Fraser Minton and Marat Husnudinov on the top line. I mentioned plus minus earlier. It's not a stat I love, but Geekie, Pastrnak, -6, -7 for this team. So they're looking to get perhaps a bit more defensive responsibility up there with Elias Lindholm on the shelf. Again, a huge game for Boston tonight. They're looking to extend their winning streak, and you got to try to take these points from your division rivals if you want to stay competitive over the course of the season. Ottawa twice, Toronto twice, then Montreal in the next 5 games. The Montreal game is going to be a tough one. That's a very good team over there. The Maple Leafs, a little vulnerable lately, but they have won 3 in a row. A big win last night over Utah. Ottawa is probably at their most vulnerable, seeing as the defense has been terrible to start the season. Goaltending hasn't been great, and they're without their captain in Brady Tkachuk. So, especially on home ice, it's important for the Bruins to avenge that loss the other night and to take these 2 points from the Ottawa Senators. That's it for today's episode, my friends. We will be back tomorrow to recap whatever happens tonight, to preview the Maple Leafs game on the weekend, to bring you all the absolute latest on the black and gold. Thank you for making Locked On Boston Bruins your first listen every day. Please do check out the Locked On NHL Game Night podcast next, which is a look at every game, every night until a Stanley Cup champion is crowned. You can find it on the Locked On NHL YouTube channel and podcast feed. Please do subscribe, like the other everydayers, to Locked On Boston Bruins so that you never miss a thing. It's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your favorite team every single day. Take care of yourselves, friends. Take care of each other. And we'll talk to you here on the next episode of Locked On Boston Bruins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.